Welcome to our weekly text study. And by text study, I really mean I'm reading the text. If you'd like to come to Bible study, it is fantastic and I highly recommend it. We have folks that offer a lot in that class, and we dive deep into the scripture, including this one, which we talked a lot about today. This scripture will connect us from last week's text, Sunday text, to this week's Sunday text. So here it is. I'm going to read it out of the Message translation, which is a little bit different than most scholarly translations you'll read, like the New Revised Standard Version, which I highly recommend. But I enjoy this translation. So let's read it together or follow along in your own Bible if you'd like. We're in Luke chapter 6, verses 17 to 49. And I'll add some commentary here and there as we go through. Here is the gospel. Coming down off the mountain with them, he stood on a plain surrounded by disciples. Now, this is the Sermon on the Mount. However, it's not on a mountain. We call it the Sermon on the Mount because in Matthew, Jesus gives a sermon from up on a mountaintop. But this is the Sermon on the plain. Right? He comes down from the mountain with them. He stands on a plain surrounded by disciples. So again, we've been talking a lot about power with versus power over. Jesus's choice, or Luke's choice to paint Jesus in this gospel as being one among the people, is significant. Right? This is where the ordinary people are, and Jesus is saying, I am with you, I am among you. He's soon joined by a huge congregation from all over Judea and Jerusalem, even from the seaside towns of Tyre and Sidon. Now, Rondi Walker pointed out in Bible study that those are about 200 miles away. Luke's geography is not fantastic. It's more symbolic than literal. So just know that Luke is trying to communicate here that people are coming from all over the country, all over from predominantly Jewish towns, predominantly Gentile towns. All kinds of folks are coming together to hear Jesus. It says they had come both to hear him and to be cured of their diseases. Those disturbed by evil spirits were healed. Everyone was trying to touch him. So much energy surging from him, so many people healed. Then he spoke. He says, you're blessed when you've lost it all. God's kingdom is there for the finding. All right, so blessed also can mean fortunate and happy. It doesn't necessarily mean that God has given you something special because of something that you did right. It just means that life has gone well for you and you should be happy about it. So in fact, a lot of translators will translate blessed as happy or fortunate. But you're blessed when you've lost it all. God's kingdom is there for the finding. You're blessed when you're ravenously hungry. Then you're ready for the messianic meal. You're blessed when the tears flow freely. Joy comes with the morning. Count yourself blessed every time someone cuts you down or throws you out. Every time someone smears or darkens your name to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and that the person is uncomfortable. I love that line. What it means when someone insults us often is that the truth is too close for comfort. Remember that prophets throughout the Bible are rejected in their hometowns, including Jesus. Sometimes when we speak truth to power, it does not go over particularly well. Jesus is saying, well, when you speak truth in my name, feel happy when people, come after you, when there's a little bit of resistance, because it means you're making people uncomfortable, but with words that may transform their lives. He says you can be glad when that happens, like a lamb if you like, for even though they like it, I do, and all heaven applauds. And know that you're in good company. My preachers and witnesses have always been treated like this. So he's doing a callback to the prophets of the Hebrew scriptures. And then he continues, now it's trouble ahead if you think you have it made. What you have is all you'll get. Trouble ahead if you're satisfied with yourself. Yourself, and that's in italics, yourself will not satisfy you for long. And it's trouble ahead if you think life is all fun and games. There is suffering to be met, and you are going to meet it. There's you live only for the approval of others, saying what flatters them, doing what indulges them, right? This is in opposition to the speaking truth to power, being honest and authentic with folks. Popularity contests are not truth contests. Look how many scoundrel preachers were approved by your ancestors. Your task is to be true, not popular. To you who are ready for the truth, I say this. Okay, now this gets tough. All right, this is where it gets tough because everyone's like, oh yeah, okay. I value the truth. I can tell people I'm honest. And he says, okay, well, those who are ready for the truth, love your enemies. Love your enemies. He says, let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the supple moves of prayer for that person. And he's not talking about that disingenuous, like when we hear things, people say things we don't like, and we're like, I'll pray for you. Not that kind of catty, condescending, I'll pray for you. He means genuinely offer prayers of love and compassion, not so that people will change. Right? Because if you're praying for people to change, I don't know, that it's hard not to do that. But he's saying, pray genuinely for their well-being. Says if someone slaps you in the face, stand there and take it. If someone grabs your shirt, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. If someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice servant life. No more payback, live generously. Now, this text also occurs in the Gospel of Matthew, and it's more of a social justice text, talking about taking off your coat. Look up Walter Wink if you want to. Google Walter Wink, take the shirt off your back or turn the other cheek. And he explains it really well that these are also acts of nonviolent resistance. But I think Luke is using these sayings of Jesus to really emphasize, be compassionate, be generous, especially to those who are difficult. We talked a lot in Bible study today that one of the best ways to help people or interact, or the question was, what do you do with people who have fallen prey to conspiracy theories? Well, you're not going to convince them by spouting facts at them. It's not going to have an impact, especially if you don't already have a relationship of trust. The most important thing you can do is build trust with folks, to love them and be there for them. That's number one. So he's saying, when it comes to your enemies, love them. Let them bring the best out of you. That's the hard word. That's a word I'm really struggling with right now, to be quite honest. Especially given what happened at the Capitol last week. I'm not there. But also, God in our in verse 34, I think. Oh, it'll come up in just a second. But basically, God treats us with compassion and respect, even when we are hostile, even when we make mistakes, even when we're very difficult to love. And so the challenge is to model that way of loving in loving our neighbors. So let's continue. Live generously, he says. He said, here's a simple rule of thumb for behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you. Then grab the initiative and do it for them. So there's a love your neighbor as yourself. If you only love the lovable, do you expect a pat on the back? Run-of-the-mill sinners do that. If you only help those who help you, do you expect a medal? Garden variety sinners do that. If you only give for what you hope to get out of it, do you think that's charity? The stingiest of pawnbrokers does that. I tell you, he says, love your enemies, help and give without expecting a return. You'll never, I promise, never regret it. Live out this God-created identity the way our God lives towards us. There's the line, right? Live the way God lives towards us, generously and graciously, even when we are at our worst. God is kind. You be kind. He continues, don't pick on people, jump on failures, criticize their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. Don't condemn those who are down. That hardness can boomerang. Be easy on people. You'll find life a lot easier. Give away your life. You'll find life given back, but not merely given back with bonus and blessing. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. It's easy to see a smudge on your neighbor's face and be oblivious to the ugly sneer on your own. All right, so this is the message uses different language for it, but it's the, instead of inspecting the speck in your neighbor's eye, maybe you should check out the plank in your own, or the log in your own. So if you're familiar with that parable, that's what this is. It's easy to see a smudge on your neighbor's face and be oblivious to the ugly sneer on your own. Do you have the nerve to say, let me wash your face for you, when your own face is distorted by contempt? It's this I know better than you mentality. Again, playing a holier than thou part instead of living your own part. Wipe that ugly sneer off your face and you might be fit to offer a washcloth to your neighbor. In other words, deal with your own stuff before you try to attack everybody else. And it was brought up in Bible study today. Oftentimes, the thing that we have the most trouble with in other people is stuff that we don't like about ourselves. There's, again, some hard truth there. Continues. You don't get wormy apples out of a healthy tree, or good apples off a diseased tree. The health of the apple tells the health of the tree. You have to begin with your own life-giving lives. It's who you are, not what you say and do, that counts. Your true being brims over into true words and deeds. We talk a lot about this, by the way, the difference between acts and belief. Both are important, but what Jesus is saying here is, if you have your heart right, your life should bear the fruit of a loving and compassionate life. He says, why are you so polite with me? Saying, yes, sir, and that's right, sir, but never doing anything I tell you. The words I speak to you are not mere additions to your life, homeowner improvements to your standard of living. They are foundation words to build a life on. If you work the words into your life, you're like a smart carpenter who dug deep and laid the foundation of his house on bedrock. When the river burst its banks and crashed against the house, nothing could shake it. It was built to last. But if you just use my words in Bible study and don't work them into your life, if you're like a stupid carpenter who builds a house but skips the foundation, when the swollen river came crashing in, it collapsed like a house of cards and was a total loss. So this ends our scripture reading. Let's remember that God is still speaking. There's a lot here, but what I hear most of all is a call to humility. And that, I think, is something we need right now. I'm not saying not to hold folks accountable when they commit violent and rude and life-threatening acts. But that's part of the speaking truth to power. But what I also hear is Jesus calling us to develop relationships with people that we might consider enemies, to understand them, to have them over for dinner. Remember, Jesus ate a meal, the Last Supper with Judas, who betrayed him. Right? Let's have these people at our table to connect with them as we're able, right? When we're in a good place and we feel safe. And even when we're not ready, God always is. And even when we're the ones acting a fool, God always welcomes us to God's table. So God offers us the grace that we're still learning how to offer others. And that's the great news in this text. I thank you for listening with me. It's so fun talking to you about the Bible, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, where we'll talk about Jesus healing the son of a widow and a centurion's servant. And remember, the centurions are the enemies of the Jewish people in a lot of ways. They're the military force of the Roman Empire that many considered oppressive. So Jesus healing him is, in a way, the continuation in action of what we're preaching here on the Sermon on the Mount. Although I struggle with it. We'll see more of that on Sunday. This has been so fun. Have a great week. I'll see you on Sunday. Take care.